Can you see my screen? Yes. Um, so, as you all know, we are here for a coaching workshop. Coaching workshop started actually as an individual plan that we were offering to individuals or small companies willing to or launch a product or actually get more structured, and then I will tell you how also small companies came in the panorama. However, due to coronavirus, we decided to launch a group workshop, and this is the first trial we're doing. All the feedback is super welcome. First of all, I want to introduce myself. As you all know, well, I'm Diana. I am from Venezuela originally, and I've been for 13 years abroad. I studied fashion design at Istituto Marangoni in Milan for 3 years. And I actually always wanted to study footwear design. And I had the chance actually to get my first job in footwear. So initially my plan was to do a master's, but then I got specialized through work. I started working at Oscar de la Renta in New York, and I was working more like a product manager rather than a designer. Very junior, like I was not actually the manager, but they make everything in Italy. So I was, since I speak Italian, I was basically the path between the Italian factory and the American design team. Right after that, I passed to Alexander Wang, where I worked as well as a footwear designer. Alexander Wang produces everything in China. So it was my first time meeting this new world, this new experience of the Chinese market, which was a bit more hectic, a bit more frenetic. I am a bit like that. So I got basically enchanted by China. I got contacted by Pacific Union Group, which is a multinational in China. And they have many brands. They are specialized in making puffin jackets, but they also have many brands. And one of them is this one, Bovillon. So I was hired to create the design department for Bovillon. Bovillon at the moment was a total look brand for women's, but it was the accessories were coordinated, but just through the buying. They were not actually they were not actually being made or designed by us. So basically, my role was to make an entire department with designers, product managers, finding the factories, finding the suppliers. It was my first entrepreneurial experience, which I always wanted to have. So it was the first time for me to encounter this first world of actually working with people, doing a business plan, working with people, dealing with numbers. I was always more like in the ephemeral part of the design, beauty, nice materials, trend forecasting. And since I always wanted to have my own brand, after 2 years in China, I decided that it was time to come back to Milan and make my own brand, which is Aletheia. Aletheia was in the market for almost 3 years. Aletheia was a classic reinterpreted style. It was all produced in Italy and mainly sell in China. We had 90% of the sales in China, and we managed to get up to 5,000 pairs of shoes per collection. So we were doing pretty good. The first collection was sold to Harvey Nichols in London, which is like Saks Fifth Avenue in New York, for example, or like Macy's, but let's say like luxury. And it was sorry, but someone is admit. So um, it was an amazing start. Thanks to that store, we managed to also be accepted by a talent scouting, like a talent accelerator company in Italy. And they helped us go to trade shows. So it was my first time also encountering trade shows, buyers, myself. The first time selling a collection, you know, making numbers, doing an Excel file on my own, because in China there were people doing it, and I was just following them. But this was the first time actually me meeting Excel, which nowadays I use a lot, but it was not the funniest thing to do, I need to admit. And when I started working with Aleteia, I actually, like during these trade shows, I actually started meeting many other designers, many other brands, small brands, medium brands. So I started consulting. A lot of brands were into the thing like, oh my God, your materials, where are they from? I have to say that the thing I do best, and not just because I think so, but because also brands, it's what they prefer from my skills, is materials and colors, mixing materials and colors. So I was doing consulting for that. And when the company I started having a lot of trouble with my business partner. So my advice number one is choose well your business partner or go on your own. And B, we actually had a terrible problem with the factories in Italy. We had to change. We did a lot to actually like try to stay on the loop, but it was really, really hard, I need to admit. If I'm going too fast, guys, you can always type questions. I just opened the chat in here to check on you. So I decided to close Aleteia, like we decided to split, close it, and I continued consulting. I need to admit that it was like, okay, I don't know if I want to be an entrepreneur anymore. This is not for me. It was too much work. I was working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, like nonstop. I used to work more or less like 17 to 18 hours a day, also because our main sales were in Asia, and we also had some in America. So basically it was like the entire globe, also, like, you know, like it's not that we had secretaries. It was me boxing, me unboxing, me factoring, me designing, me trend forecasting, and me everything, cleaning the toilets as well. So it became a bit too much, and I was like, okay, never again. I started consulting, and when I actually started consulting, I realized that's what I actually like doing, because it's more various. And as I always say, you know, when you study design, you think you can just be a designer, but it's not true. I mean, or yeah, you can also be a designer, but it doesn't mean that you need to have your own brand or work for another brand, like just one brand, you know? So it was interesting. Since then, I've collaborated with brands such as Philippe Plein, Santoni, Hogan, La Fille de Fleur. This was my first client, and nowadays is my biggest client. I started doing 2 styles for them, and nowadays I do more than 600 styles for them. I have the entire collection. So I do the creative direction for the brand. Also, like right now during COVID, talking to communication agency, to the like everything like digital marketing, sales campaigns, you know, like going all around the company. So it's really interesting. It's us having my own brand again. More Concept, Blog, they're in Australia. The No Project, they're in the Emirates. Anonymous Copenhagen, they're Danish. So it's been really interesting, because actually we started, like I had the opportunity to start working with not just many brands, but many markets. And we started the coaching workshop due to the consulting, because when I started working with these brands, I realized that, of course, Hogan, which is a company that makes more than 300 million, they are structured, or that's what you think. They won't let me touch, of course, anything else that it's not design. But for example, La File, which is quite like, it's small for a brand because they haven't still passed the 3 millions per year, but they're still big, let's say, for not being structured, and they are not structured. So I'm like, I sit down with them and we try to structure the company like day by day. And that's how actually the coaching workshop started, because I realized many brands actually were not organized, even though they're existing. And I also realized that there were many clients reaching out like, hey, I would like to have a company, but I realized they were completely out of planet Earth, you know? So they had no clue how to start. They just wanted to make nice designs, and that's not all about it when you design. So in here, I did like, why are we here? There's many reasons why we could be here. You could have a family business and you don't know where to start from, like how to help them. You would like to be an entrepreneur. You have many ideas and you don't know how to organize them. I think I know what to do, but I'm not sure how to do it, you know? So there's many reasons why we could actually be doing this workshop, even if it's like for the long run. And I would like to start telling you a bit about like, why is it important to do a business plan? And here you have like 4 main steps, or 4 main reasons. A, to ensure the efficacy of existing resources. Money, I have a lot of clients always saying like, no, but you know, money is not the problem. Money is always a problem, or time is always a problem, you know? And not like, I had a girl that started with $300,000 because she comes from a wealthy family and her father was tired of her doing nothing, so he gave her a good amount of money. But for 300,000, you burn them as you burn 300 if you don't know how to manage them, because you're like, who has 300 will actually spend for 300. So we'll be careful, but the percentage most likely will be the same. And who has 300,000 think that they have a lot of money and they will just start spending crazy without knowing what they're spending. So resources are very important, and more than anything at the beginning, that you have to always do tests to know if your market or your like the person you're designing for is liking your product, if your product is like well accepted by the market, if you're covering a real need, or if you're just invented it. So like, you need to test so much when you start that you have to take care of the resources you have. Then a business plan also helps for getting funds. So it can be grants, so like public funds. Maybe in Europe, there are a lot for entrepreneurs. And those are like competitions where you have to hand a business plan, explain your idea, and it's really nice. Not just in Europe, I bet, I wouldn't say every country, because I know Venezuela doesn't have any, but like a lot of countries, they do things maybe for women, like entrepreneurial things with women, or like people supporting other like communities. So you could also go to a bank, which at the beginning I don't suggest it, because you're still testing your idea and you're risking the possibility of making a black hole and not knowing how to cover it. Or you could go to investors, and maybe your first investor, and most likely your first investor will be, it's the 3 F's, friends, families, and fools. So, but friends and families, let's say, is like usually the first investors you have. And even then, you will need a business plan, at least to show them, hey, this is how I'm planning to get some money, even though if it's a really raw business plan, but just to have an idea. Then another way, and another important aspect of having a business plan is to increase your chance of success. And in here, the Journal of Management Studies in 2010, they said that organizations with business plans had an annual average growth of 33.4% higher than their entire counterparts. That's, I don't know what it is. But it's extremely important because it's the only way to know where you're coming from and where you're actually going to. And the other is to recognize success when you achieve it. Of course, you need to pre-establish what is success to yourself. Now, if it's quantitative or if it's qualitative, how are we going to manage it? Is it just like sales? Is it I don't know, awareness? Is it making 50,000 by the end of the year? Is it like duplicating your revenues? You know, like there's many, of course, ways of recognizing or like achieving success. Success is not finite. It's always like it's always a work in progress. You know, you will always have new goals to achieve, and in fact your business plan changes constantly. It's not something, and by constantly, you know, you have to revisit it. There's not a rule. It's not like every 3 months or every 6 months. At the beginning you will have to change it a lot, and by change it doesn't mean everything, but you will have to adapt it, you know. So like, for example, when I started consulting, I never thought that a workshop would actually be a part of my revenue. And as soon as I understood that could be, I just added it as one of my services. And as soon as I actually started selling it, I actually understood that it was really good. So I started also predicting what it could become to have, like what it could be, or the benefits it could give me to have this service as part of the services. So in here, to turn your ideas into a successful enterprise, the first thing you must develop is your very own value proposition. According to Osterwalder and Pinner, a value proposition helps you understand how you're capturing your customers' problems and needs. In other words, how do I create and deliver value? Because the most important thing at the end of a business is to create value. These are few of the bullet points we have to make on a business plan, or at least in the workshop we do. Since we usually don't work with people with business backgrounds or communication or sales backgrounds, we do a very simple thing. A, to make you like start getting in the mood, and B, to be able to achieve it. Because if you see the real business plans that has a lot of like inflow, outflow, 100 pages in Excel, 5 years forecast, then we creative minds won't do it. So we start by something simple, we start liking it, and then we're going to be obsessed by it. Also because when you start seeing that your numbers grow and how they, like where they come from, how they grow, then you just become actually like obsessed by this kind of things. So first things we need to establish our target market, which means not just the location we are going to be selling, distributing, like producing everything. Like yes, I'm going to sell in Europe, I'm going to sell in North America, I'm going to sell here, 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 but it's also the kind of person. So with this, we're going to establish the DNA of our brand, of our company. Each company or each brand has a DNA. The product benefits and which problem solves to my client. As I said previously, we want to create value. So my product needs to have a benefit, whether it is just like I am an online store and there's someone coming to your house and putting the shoe in, like you making you try the shoe, and then they leave. If you want to keep it, you keep it. If not, they take it out. That's a benefit you're offering. And maybe that's the problem you're also solving to your clients, because maybe your clients are too lazy to actually get it back to, or like calling DHL or taking it to the post office. So we have to think like which are our competitors and how are we going to make it better. Okay, we're not inventing hot water. There's basically everything that has been invented more than anything when it's related to fashion. So we just have to deliver a better service, create more value somehow, and we have to define that in our business plan. How are we going to be profitable? How are we going to promote our business? How are we going to, well, this is our competitors and added value compared to them that I said previously. How to measure success, which I also said it in the past slide. So is it just sales, or is sales 50% of my success? And if yes, I want to achieve 100,000 by the end of the year, you know, like establishing what is success to me and how I will measure it. Then the positioning. Positioning is it's a very like marketing thing, but it's very important to know very well your, like, it's a visual way to know where you are and where your competitors are, your advantages. So value proposition, mission, vision, how to reach objectives. So this vision needs to be reached, and we have to establish it. We have to establish goals 6 months, 2 years, 5 years. As I said, it will change. It's not like nothing is forever. So it's something we will we always work on. And then we have the SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is a very easy Excel file that I personally use. Well, mine is a bit more complicated, but this is more or less how I work. So basically, I have my net income, and then how much I pay for taxes, how much I dedicate to work funds. At the moment, I personally don't have a salary from the company because we're doing really well, but I can still say like, okay, I can give myself 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 a month. So it's very variable. So this net you see in here is that. I also have other source of income. So at the moment, I'm just managing this. So I'm chilled. And I allocate for debts, for investment, work funds, taxes, you know, everything. Then in here, for example, I put clients. So client number one paid, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000, 7,000, 500, you know, and you have the total in here. It all goes split, taxes, work fund, and in here are the expenses. It is extremely important to know where your money is coming from and where it goes to, just to be realistic, you know. The day in here, I won't be in here, but I will be in here as an employee, you know. I will be like, wow, amazing, definitely, like, great job. That's my objective this year. And then it's really important to have a company presentation. Here, Viviana says, Diana, I think the presentation is frozen in the first slide. Is everyone having the same problem? Oh, good, guys. I've been going ahead for like 30 minutes. Resume share. How do I do? Let me. Now you're seeing it? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So basically, welcome to my presentation. So, well, this was basically what we said about the business plan, and these are the key points we were speaking about. And this is the Excel file that I was saying. And so the company presentation. A company presentation can be, of course, as complex and complete as you want. I always say that, of course, like the main information, it needs to be there. Mine is a bit longer than this. Never do it that long either. Mine is a bit longer because it has a lot of images, but actually the text is short. Also, being in design, you know, it's important. Mine is longer because it has more designs and more shoes, like real shoes, more slides as this one with the prototype, the inspiration, the final sample, you know, so like the client sees the entire like the entire process. But I have in here your mission and vision. You never have to share it, or you don't have to share it necessarily, but I do share it. I have my areas of expertise. I have like the design process, so I divided it in like trend forecasting, some sketches, prototype and samples. Then we do sourcing and buying, we do product management, and we are super specialized in sustainability. So that's a very big focus. And in fact, also in our website, and that's part of the communication, you have about services. When you go down in services, you have design, sourcing, production, coaching, and then you have sustainability out of it. And the first thing it says, it's not that it's not a service, it is a service as well. However, this is extremely important to us. So it's like, that's also part of the way you want to communicate. And then once we have our business plan, we can start making a communication strategy. To make a communication strategy that works, we have to establish long-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. And again, in here, the goals depends on you. It can be lead generation, it can be sales, it can be web traffic, social media interaction, SEO success. So to me, for example, lead generation is extremely important, sales is extremely important, and social media interaction is extremely important. Now we're working on the SEO success. We realized that our page website loads more or less in 15 seconds, which is extremely low. Like a good website should load in 5 seconds. That means we have definitely something super heavy on the website. But those are things that you can't work them all together. We are just 4 people working at the moment in the company. So it's difficult to manage it all at the same time. And once you decide which one are your objectives, you decide also how you will communicate, which channels you're going to use. For example, our best communication channels are newsletters and Instagram. And then we also have online ads, okay? Online ads to us is not just to communicate, like to create awareness, it's also to create sales. We create awareness, therefore, but we don't make yet ads for creating real awareness. It's just something that happens because they're there. And once we actually know which channels we're going to do, we have to make a content creation strategy. What do we do in this content creation? We choose our target market, which is not the same as the business plan. It has to be I think the powerful number in everything you do in business communication, sales, anything you do is 3. It's not that you can have 5. It's just like 3 somehow is the magic number. And for example, I'm going to give an example about myself. As a consulting firm, from the business plan, our target is, like main target is footwear companies, the total look companies or footwear companies willing to make lifestyle shoes or technical shoes around the world. That's our target. It's pretty wide. Whereas in here, we have the first target, which is actually our best clientele, are footwear companies from the premium sector in Europe that earns between 500,000 to 3 million. Why? Because we're not yet that big And getting to bigger companies usually means to have more contacts. So we of course try to work on that, but and why at least 500,000 a year? Because if not, they don't earn enough to pay our services. So we're basically losing time. Maybe someone understands the importance and they're looking exactly what, like, we are exactly what they're looking for, but that's not always like that. Okay, so it's very important that to us that they earn at least that. And then our second target to communicate to is companies that, like, women's wear, Total Look, or handbag brands that wants to develop a second line or a footwear line. So to us, then this brand that wants to grow bigger and wants to develop a shoe line, those are our second target to communicate to. And then our third target is sports brands from the technical industry. So, like, for example, So Ill, which is a climbing like outerwear company. They're super cool, and we aim to go to this kind of people or companies to or make their products prettier or develop a lifestyle line. Okay, so that's the way we communicate with them, that we divide them. Why? Because the communication to all of these companies is completely different. You can't speak to Patagonia the way you speak to, I don't know, Bata. And there's nothing bad with the two of them. It's just like Bata, it's a company that makes just shoes for lifestyle. They're economic, but they are shoes for lifestyle. Patagonia, instead, they care a lot about sustainability, whereas Bata, they don't. So that doesn't mean that you're going to do something contradictory in your communication, because you're not going to say, like, we love sustainability, and the next post is like, who cares about the world? No. But you need to, for example, make some post that makes Patagonia understand that you also know about technical footwear. Okay, so we have to choose the kind of communication and the tone of voice for each target we choose, and each target has a percentage. So my biggest client has maybe 50% of my communication, the second biggest client maybe has 30% of the communication, and the other has 20, and that you have to decide it yourself. There's not a rule on that. The kind of content, so, like, are we going to create value? Are we going to make also entertainment? Are we also going to promote? So, and also that has a percentage. So, and you have to determine what is value to you, what is entertainment. Value to me, for example, is when I speak about new materials, new technologies. Entertainment to me is when I speak about, like, for example, takeovers on trade shows, or I even make some, like, renders. That's entertainment to me. And promotional is when I am like, hey, I'm doing a workshop, join us. That's a promotion. No, and it can also be like, hi, we're offering the sustainability, like, one of our services that it's perfect to promote because it has a fixed price is our sustainability program, because it costs 1,500 euros, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, it has like those items. So it's very specific. We know the amount of time it's going to take from us. So it's extremely easy to sell and to promote. That is a product we tend to promote. And how often are we going to communicate? Are we going to send 2 newsletters a month, 1 newsletter a month, once a week? Are we going to post 3 times a week? Are we going to make just stories? Like all of that. And last but not least, there is the sales strategy. So the first thing we establish, or one of the first things we establish in our business plan, is if we're a B2B or a B2C, or if we are both. B2B is a business to business, so we sell wholesale, and the B2C is business to consumer, so we sell directly to the customer, so all of us. Okay, if I buy online, I am a B2C. And then all of this works for them. It's just like the strategy needs to be different. You can go to a trade show, you can do telemarketing, which is the worst marketing thing ever, but it exists and it works. Digital marketing, social media, online store, retail, events. So we have to we have to establish how we are going to sell, and that's super important. Create a data file where you can actually put like, okay, so out of like, for example, I have one just for the people that replies. So interested in the service, trend forecasting, too expensive, interested in trend forecasting, paid this much, interested in material sourcing, natural materials. So like I specify everything because that also helps me create communication, like deliver a better communication, let's say strategy, or content. Because once I know that out of 10 clients that were interested in material sourcing, 8 were interested in biodegradable materials, then I'm going to speak about biodegradable materials because I might be able to sell something regarding biodegradable materials. Plus, I am going to also create a constant interaction with my clients that will let me have a future opportunity, even if it's a second project. Maybe we did one project, or it's the first one. And that's basically how I do my sales, how I do my communications, and how I did and continue to do my business plan. The last thing I do for sales is CRM, so customer relationship management, which is, I use personally HubSpot. Helps me organize all my workflow and all the reminders. They also have like better plans that you can pay, that they have bots. So if you go in the website, there can be a bot. There can be a bot for like making everything automatized. So all of the email marketing goes automatized thanks to HubSpot. It's an amazing tool, and it's another employee that costs much less. And that's basically about it. I don't know if you have any questions regarding or sales or communication or business planning. If you also have maybe like something to share that maybe you're going through as an entrepreneur. I don't see your faces, so I don't know if you are all lost or you fell asleep. Guys, at least tell me in the chat if you don't have any questions. I have to unmute you. Yeah, go, Dipanshi.
It wasn't exactly a question, but okay. I was wondering, like, you know, there's one of my friends who recently started a business of earrings, and she like recycles basically old leather and she converts them into earrings. So she told me there's a lot of after sale problems that she has with her clients. You know,
like what?
How can we manage like after sale services? So like, you know, whenever she sends her stuff to the stylist to for a shoot, or like to a magazine where they want to do a whole spread and they want to cover like, okay, like shoes from this brand, earrings from this brand, clothes from this brand. I mean, and like some customers, they just like, you know, buy stuff and then they like return it within a day or two, just because they like wanted to like wear it and then expect returns. I don't know. It was kind of funny. It's funny. This is something I'm actually nervous about.
Funny.
Yeah, it's something that I'm very nervous about because you know, like all these stylists, they just like, you know, buy stuff from brands and they use it for their shoots and then they like return all of those. So as a business person, as many sales I'm making, suppose I made like 10 sales in a day, and like out of which say 4 like came back, I think this is something I'll have to put up with eventually. It's people, you can't do much about it.
There is, in the sense that the first thing we have to do is to create a bit of conscious about that. Also, because if another thing I always say, and that I think it's very important for us to take into consideration, is that we are the influencers of what we want to see in the world. So if we want a more sustainable world, that's the first thing we have to influence. And buying and returning is the less sustainable thing you can do as a consumer. So I think you, as a brand, you can also tell your customers, like, do know that each road that the product, there's ways of calculating it, like each road of like each trip of the item cost X amount of CO2 emissions.
Money.
Help us save by not returning. So like you could do something to actually like tell your people not to do it. And stylists, if they do that, that's very unethical. It's normal that they ask for things to do photo shoots, and that's good also, because that's material for you, for your website, for your social media. That's also some advertisement you will receive. So but they usually ask you to lend the articles, which is normal. That is absolutely normal. And that's why you actually always give away the samples. So you have one article that will hopefully not be as destroyed, but if it is destroyed, at least you can sell it as a sample, or you will always sell it as a sample. But you know, there's samples that are destroyed that you sell for very low price, and there are samples that are not as destroyed that you can sell for a better price.
So you do agree, like when the products come back from the stylist, they are like pretty much ruined. And also because I'm not going to be keeping any stock, that everything is going to be on a made to order basis. So that's
made to order, it's fine, but you are always going to make samples. You always need to make them, also because it's the way you will sell your product, and you will test that it's coming correct. Samples are extremely important. I mean, you make a prototype which is very raw, it looks horrible, it doesn't matter the material, it's just to test if the shape is good, and then you make a sample just to be completely sure about it. But that's the product you're going to use for making photo shoots, for making the catalog, to send to buyers, to take to the trade shows. So it is absolutely normal that you will always have, like, small companies, they usually have one pair of each article, pair or single article, I mean pair of earrings or one ring, you know, that you take. Like, for example, we had the problem because China was a showroom and we had the showroom in Milan. So for not producing 2 samples, what I used to do, it was like I would split. So like right foot would go to China and left foot would stay in Italy, for example. So because also samples are extremely expensive, it would cost us around 15,000 per season. So it's that much expensive that otherwise we would have, okay, maybe we wouldn't spend 13, we would have spent like 20,000 per season, and that's too much. So why not saving a bit if it was possible? But you do know, and then I would sell the samples. I mean, if a pair of boots was 560 euros, I would then sell them for like 100. And I managed to sell basically all my samples. I still have like 7 pairs left, but I managed to sell everything. So it's good. You manage to sell it, you cash in a bit, and I mean, it's possible. Does anybody else have another question?
I have a question. When you made, sorry.
Thank you, Dipanshu.
You had your own brand, right? Alea, that's what it's called?
Aleteia.
How do you manage to make the link between your brand and foreign countries? Like you told us you were selling in China.
Mm-hmm. That was through trade shows. We were B2B. We never did a B2C.
Okay.
So we were selling directly to shops, and we went to trade shows to do that. So you pay a booth. Usually they're very expensive, so I highly suggest you to go or on a contest to get in the trade show for free, or on a talent accelerator. Like we were paying like 20% of the cost of a booth. A booth goes around from 12,000 to 15,000, the smallest ones, and we were paying 2,500. So not bad, in the sense that it's still expensive, but it was not bad. Yeah, it's more affordable. And with the trade shows, you get in touch with buyers. There's a lot of follow-up to do after that. You will have a receipt where you write down everything, like this article, this much, like this amount of, like this quantity they want, like I don't know, 12 pairs from this number to this number. Like you wrote down everything, and then you print it, you stamp it, and you put your business card, and you put their business card. So each one, like the one that with your business card goes to them, and the copy stays, well, they have the copy, you have the original. And that's all. Then you have to follow up a lot. That sign order doesn't mean that you actually managed to sell. You manage to sell when you have the money in the bank account. And that takes a lot of follow-up. I mean, I had to call each store at least 10 times. Hi, how are you? And the first order I signed with Japan, I didn't send it. I was so excited when I received that order. I was like jumping all around the trade show. I was crying, and then it was the only one who didn't pay.
It happens.
Yeah, that was funny. Actually, it was not that funny at the moment because they were my only clients, and then just like torturing literally the other buyers, I managed to sell. And that's how you do, unless you want to do a B2C, so sell online, and that's ads. That I highly recommend you to specialize in one market. Okay. Also because it will be easy. The ads will cost less. So if you, for example, you say, I just want to sell in the UK, or I want to sell in the US, but most likely you as a Peruvian, you want to sell in the US, because usually Latin America sells in America, and it's actually the best strategy ever. But let's say you want to sell in the US. You choose the cities, because it's not all the US. Otherwise, you're going to lose too much money. You choose the cities you want to go to. And B, you start with little budget in the ads, like, I don't know, 50 euros, just to start adjusting it. Let's say that your final budget will be 100 euros. Okay, you start with even 25, like something little, so you can adjust, because you're going to see at the beginning that there's a lot of, like, the ads are adjusting all the time. So you will receive a lot of people that actually wants to buy Balenciaga, and you're going to be like, I'm not Balenciaga. So you discard that. You have to adjust them every 2 weeks, more or less, until they become better. And let's say that it takes more or less 3 to 6 months to start seeing some results, and from 6 months to a year to see a result, like a tangible result. There's no like accuracy on that. There's a lot of things to do. You have to do a lot of A/B testing. You have to see if to you is better Google ads, or like Google display, or Google search, or Facebook on Instagram, if it's better a post with a writing, or if it's just better a picture, like a video. So there's a lot of tests to do, and that's something you will not manage, of course, to do in 1 month. Those are things that you start trying, and then you see like, okay, these are the 2 best ads out of 4. Let me take out these last 2 that they didn't work much, and let me put the money on these 2, plus let me add one more to try. You know, like you have to do a lot of trial and error on ads, and that's a good way to start. The only problem with online stores is that you need to have stock to sell, of course, and well, that's expensive. You know, like I would sell just what was paid up front, so I never took money out of my pocket. Not never at the beginning, but for the stores, I knew that the collections were paid already, even when delivered. So I had 100% of the money before delivering it. So I would just pay for the production I actually managed to sell.
Okay.
That's the only thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody else? No.
Yeah, I have a question. Hi.
Hi, Pedro.
Video. And for example, if we focus on the B2C, that is getting online digital marketing, what impressed me is that nowadays the new brands, they're made up by really young people, and what you are looking for, I think that for the person that create the brand, not anymore for like an idea, but for, I don't know how to explain it, but for the person. I mean, the person is very important right now. You have to be an influencer in order to sell a brand? Is my question. So,
no, I mean, you mean the person like the customer, or the person who's making the brand?
No, the person who's making the brand.
No, you don't have to be
important.
an influencer. No, you don't have to be an influencer. That's a good question, and that's something I actually asked myself when I did my brand, in the sense that I had two options for the name. It was whether calling it Diana Llanes or Aleteia. I gathered with this teacher from uni. He's a marketer. So I was like, okay, I don't know which one to choose. And I even asked among my friends that work in the fashion industry, of course, working in the fashion industry for over 10 years. All of my friends work in the fashion industry. So it was not a difficult survey. And they were all like, yeah, both are nice. Call it Diana Llanes. Everyone calls it their name. Or like, no, Aleteia. Like, take out your personality. And when I spoke to the guy, which is a marketer, everything was much easier to me to decide, because Diana Llanes would have meant that also I was the first influencer of my brand, and I didn't want to do anything with my brand because I liked the shoes I was making. But I also surf, I also climb, I like to paint, I like to sing, though I sing terribly bad. I like to go out dancing. I like many things. And my brand was not all of that, you know? My brand was everything but climbing, everything but, I don't know, surfing. So I didn't want anyone to relate my personality, which is that varied, with my brand. You could, on the other hand, and that's why I decided Aleteia also, because my business partner and I were together, and he said, like, you know, this is beautiful because Aleteia means to unveil. And I chose it from a book. Well, that's a long story, but I chose the name because there was an architect explaining this Aletheaic concept that was horizontal, inclusionary, democratic, and I love the concept. So I decided to put that, and he was like, this is beautiful because it's the journey of the two of you instead of just Diana Llanes, that it seems that it's just you behind the brand. Also, Aleteia, it looked, you know, we could say we, even though it was just me, because, you know, nobody would think about anything. If you call it Diana Llanes, then, or I show you my team or my revenues, or you will just know that it's just me. So, you know, there's pros and cons. You don't need to be an influencer. Being an influencer means you have already more people to sell to. But that would mean that you have to make the products for the people you want to sell to, in the sense that, for example, I have my Instagram account, okay? And I use it a lot to tell tips about, I don't know, sustainability, entrepreneurship, people who wants to be a freelancer, whatever. But it's a bit about myself, you know? I have 3,000 followers. I don't have much. It's just, but I post a lot. I have a really good interaction. And consulting, my brands are all in Europe. And I always speak English. And I would have said, my target is all international. Yes, you can see that I have a lot in Italy, a lot in the US, Mexico, huge. I don't know why. Spain, huge. I don't know why. Maybe because there's a lot of Venezuelans there. I don't know. But the truth is that when I launched this workshop, I have 70 people in the Spanish workshop and I have 6 people in here. So I was like, I am trying to do that. So imagine, like, if I would use my social media as an influencer, me as an influencer of the product I'm selling, I wouldn't manage to sell my consulting. So I would have had to make a product for my target. So I think that if you're an influencer, you can use it as a selling tool, but you can't do what you want to do. That in a way you can never do what you want to do, but you always need to think on the market, no? But in that case, that's your market, so you have to do something for that market. And I don't know, that, like, I mean, plus also a brand itself will become a personality. It will be longer, of course, because you never make a personality from one day to the other, you know? I became who I am to myself, to my family, to my friends, to anyone in a matter of 30 years. And that's the same for a brand. And I've always been myself, but like who I am nowadays, of course, like it takes a time for people to adjust to, that's the new Diana, or like, I don't know, like I remember that I used to be the captain of the national selection of kickball, which is a sports like Caribbean sports yeah, it's like baseball. And actually, it's a very masculine sport. And the first time my team saw me on a skirt, they were like, what is that doing with a skirt? You know, like, is she sick? And that's a silly example, but it's exactly that, you know, it's just building a personality and making people understand who that person or brand is. Nowadays, my team makes fun of me because they're always like, but you've always been so feminine. And I'm like, dude, no, you were always making fun of me. They even forgot who I was before. So, I mean, I was not even that non-feminine, but for sure I'm much more at the moment. So, I mean, that's a bit about it, I would say. But that's a good question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't know. And does anybody else have a question? No? Well, so guys, A, thank you very much for attending. B, for those who wants to learn more, there is a possibility. We've developed this group workshop. It's 6 hours for 3 days on a row. And it's not just this explanation, it's that we're going to work together for 2 hours. Then, of course, you have homework. But there is a possibility to continue for those who actually want to make a plan. As I said, this is from an individual workshop that we do, and that workshop costs 550 euros. And due to the situation, we've seen a lot of people willing to actually make something, study, invest in their education, and like start preparing for the next step. But we understand that it's extremely, or it's a bit expensive for the moment. So we decided to make this group workshop that we really hope will help a lot of people. We're going to send you a recap about the workshop. And if you are willing to do it, I will be more than happy to have you there. It will be on the 16th, 23rd, and 30th of May, 2 hours each day. And you will have all the templates. So the template for the business plan, the template for the company presentation, the Excel template, the template for the community, for the communication, data file of data, and everything. It will be available in Spanish and in English. And that's all. Thank you very much. It was really nice meeting you all. And please update me. If I see you in the workshop, I would love to. If I don't, update me. I will put in here our Instagram where you can update me on everything. Diana, Janes_consulting. I love knowing about all of you and your progress. Okay. Thank you very much. And I'll try to leave this, which yeah, I know how to do it. Okay. Thank you guys. Bye.